move it to this different. I'm using two monitors and somehow this one is not. I think it will be safer. Okay. Yeah, I think I can. Oh, sorry. In this case, I still think the earlier one is much better. Yes. Okay. All right. So, should I start?
Yes.
Okay. Good. So my topic is energy connectivity between European Union and Northeast Asia, and I subtitled Energy Transition and Low Carbon Path. By this time last year, of course, I was hopeful, and we were all hopeful that we could have a meeting somewhere in Germany after the Stockholm meeting. But also, I was hopeful that the EU's connectivity issue, well, connectivity initiative highlighted four areas. One was transportation, digital, energy, and people to people. So I actually expected more cases of energy connectivity and some infrastructure interconnection project would come out, but over 1 year, quite a lot of things have changed the context. And the biggest factor is the COVID-19. It virtually freezed. The most of cross-border energy investments, especially energy infrastructure investment. So the few weeks ago, I actually changed the contents and well, I actually changed the direction of my paper from energy infrastructure interconnection that I have the plan 1 year ago to this energy transition and low carbon the path. And fortunately, during past 1 year, the big change, well, kind of the big that have been made between Europe and also in Asian countries, Northeast Asian countries. European Union have introduced the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal, oops, and Asian countries, and Asian countries, three Northeast Asian countries, China, Japan, Korea, also adopted a net zero initiative, and that came out just few weeks and few months ago. So I thought that working on these initiatives of net zero means zero emission. The target it is very long-term target, 2050 and 2060, but this is a rare area currently, at least at the initiative level and rhetoric level. European Union and Asian Northeast Asian countries are sharing their goal, and indeed China, Japan, Korea are very active. So this is not the relation is not about the energy aid or something. This is the competition, and actually it which had a real substance. So my kind of the renew the flow and synopsis of paper is I would start from EU's Asia connectivity and which highlighted the energy sector. So including a regional energy platform, modern energy system, and environmental friendly solution, and especially efficient cross-border connection, transportation, energy, digital, human network. And so I traced the EU's potential energy, the connectivity agenda, but actually this was the only case I could found. Okay, so the tentative conclusion was the physical interconnection, actual interconnection of energy system can be considered only at the neighboring regions, mostly in Central Asia. And unfortunately, I didn't have lots of knowledge in this area as well. It carries still a limited scale of feasibility. And nowadays, due to the pandemic situation and economic recession, uncertainties have grown. And it realistically, it inevitably overlaps with China's BRI project in Central Asia and Eastern neighborhood countries. So it will be it will be actually much faster to trace China's BRI strategy than finding EU's connectivity project in this region. So that was the context I tried to focus the switch to the renewable and the green side. So I decided to focus on the renewed momentum of green energy transition in EU versus 3 Northeast Asian countries, the Green New Deal and Net Zero Plan, and China's low carbon development strategy in the next, the forthcoming national 5-year national economic planning. Japan has announced a net zero emission, the Suga administration, a few weeks ago, and 2 days later, Korea also announced the net zero 2050 in addition to Green New Deal, which was announced a couple months ago. So by examining and by comparing these cases, these 4 different initiatives, 1 from Europe and 3 from Northeast Asia. This paper asked, will Asia be Europe's partner for green energy transition, and also will Europe be Asia's partner for green energy transition, and what are the conditions for EU Northeast Asia energy connectivity? Okay, so I will compare the similarities and differences, and also international context for green energy connectivity between EU and Northeast Asia, and the areas for potential cooperation, and opportunities and challenges of policy coordination. So it's a couple of years ago, in 2011 or 2012, at that time, Korea adopted the green growth, and there was another wave of green initiative in Northeast Asia. So I wrote a paper at that time, but 8 years later, 9 years later, well, we are in a quite different international context. So the EU announced the net zero pledge. So when we are tracing this pink line, then it is targeting the zero emission by 2050. Okay, and it covers virtually every sector. And these are the ambitious goal of a European Green Deal, which was announced exactly 1 year ago, the December 2019. And in this, on the left-hand side, this is China's emission projection and forecast. And well, China is trying to curb down the emission. Well, it may not decrease dramatically, but many scenarios are coming out. Japan and Korea's the investment scheme in the investment plan. So this paper, this table summarized that the China #1 emitter in the world, and Japan #4, South Korea #6, and Germany and EU, when it combined, it is another big emitter. So I think the 4 cases will be quite relevant for this comparative analysis. So these are the table of contents. The introduction will clarify the structure and explain under the context. And then I will explain energy provider and energy low carbon energy transition in Europe, and then the same analysis in Northeast Asia, and then comparative analysis between EU and Northeast Asia, the category I mentioned, and especially I will look at the Paris Agreement, the INDC, the national target, and recent recent initiative of renewable energy 100 RE 100. This is the actually for the company level. So by examining this international context, not just domestic, I want to find out, well, as much as possible, the conditions, the possible condition under which condition green energy connectivity could be galvanized between the EU and Northeast Asia. So I will conclude with some area for potential cooperation and opportunities and challenges of policy coordination. So this is the structure of my the paper. This was the planning, and I would be happy to get your comments and advice.
Thank you. Floor is open. Anybody can intervene in any way.
In any way.
Yep. Sure.
Okay, thank you very much. So I have one question for Anna and one question for Professor Lee. So I think thank you very much for presenting about the sustainability with regard to the connectivity. So while I'm hearing your presentation, I think I would like to know what could be the biggest challenge of the sustainable connectivity between Europe and Asia. But as far as I read over some related policy papers, so the clean technology is the edges of the sustainable connectivity between Europe and Asia. So do you think is the Asian countries likely to share European values with Asia? So as a European people's perspective, then I would like to hear from you. And also Professor Lee, and also I think the energy connect is not my expertise area, but I have some well, kind of the ask the questions of whether will have the energy relations will expand the horizon, will have the bring Europe and Northeast Asia closer. So actually, do you think will be kind of any possible chances to deepen the relations between Europe and Northeast Asia? So that's all for my questions.
So Anna and Professor Lee, would you like to answer directly, respond?
I can try, and Charles, if he wants to, can add on to my answer. We are not looking into the perceptions of Asian populations or even Asian elites in this paper, basically because we don't have any data. I mean, Charles has done research before on perceptions on EU global leadership in the climate change agreements, but he collected a lot of data, can say something about it, but we can't do that in this paper. So we have to look at or look into the existing contractual arrangements that exist between the countries that are included in the EU-Asia connectivity strategy, and they're very different. And I mean, the countries are different. The proximity to the EU is different, and the sort of the existing, if you like, form or contractual relationships are very, very different. So that is, of course, a challenge for the EU as the driving partner here. I mean, if it aims to be the driving partner, it's a challenge to sort of handle all these different contractual relationships it has. And one very interesting thing is that with the countries on the Balkans, 3 of which actually negotiated for membership, and they should be ready to take over the EU acquis, if you like, so the EU policy regimes, and also the goals of the policy regimes. They are very much tempted by going with China and the BRI, and there is a clash of standards and regulatory environments and so on. So even there we see that it's not very easy, I think. But I think the EU is making headway with the countries that actually think in some ways alike when it comes to sustainability. So Japan and now also hopefully South Korea, or the Republic of Korea. So we'll see. So what the paper will do is just to investigate the possibilities that are there in the connectivity strategy for the EU to develop its leadership, and in what way. So what kind of, using the topology that Charles and his colleagues have developed.
Regarding Sewon's question, yes, indeed, between Japan and European Union economic partnership, also this kind of issues been mentioned, and EU-Korea framework agreement, which had the 10th anniversary just a few days ago, also highlighted. It became another pillar of cooperation. So as far as lovely words go, yes, indeed, there is the area of the cooperation and coordination in G20 meeting. All these members are joining the G20 meetings and or G17 also. And another, well, and Joe Biden administration from the United States announced that it will, that the U.S. will be back to the climate change regime. So I foresee the next couple of years will be a quite fast track in advancing this agenda. So quite naturally, these regions will be in a nice context to share these ideas. Okay, but however, my idea and my approach is I'm not kind of summarizing. I'm not working on government propaganda. I'm not working on multinational organizations' homepage, the materials. I'm looking at more. Well, I'm looking at the issues more in a more critical angle. So what are the actual but green looks beautiful, but it is not always peaceful. Okay. Oftentimes, well, I would not hesitate to use the word in my another area of say energy geopolitics. Then I may call it the green war. So this kind of climate change regime and environmental and low carbon issues can be easily translated. It is being translated into a new trade barrier, market access barrier, and so the competition over setting a standard is getting a lot tougher, and also these issues are quite easily related with the smart grid, the smart city issues that will use AI and big data on which China is actually very active. So many countries are kind of placing this agenda up front, but actually in behind there are huge industrial and also economic issues are going on. So this is an area where the value and goodwill and the actual economic and industrial interests are coexisting. So I'm trying to trying not to be too ideal, but we'll try to look at the more kind of the factual, the comparative analysis of policy initiative, and also it's the limitations.
Thank you.
Any other? Yep, sure.
Sebastian.
Yeah, thank you very much for a remark or a comment that goes to.
We had some buffering.
Okay.
There's some glitches. So
yes, can you hear me now?
Can you repeat? Yes.
Now this is a lot better.
I have a comment that goes to both of you, and that is you're very much focusing on the cooperative aspects shaping, I mean, what we have done this morning already is shaping narratives. But then what about the impact that, the larger impact that COVID-19 has on China's role? That is to say, its more assertive role. What about the impact that the Trump administration had on the EU's role, and also Asian actors' role? All of this is causing a trajectory that is far more competitive than we expected a couple of years before. So this, whether you call this, or what you can call this geopolitics, but isn't that something that we need to consider more earnestly when we reflect upon connectivity? I mean, that means that the role of the EU is far more contentious than it used to be. The ASEAN countries yesterday, in the ministerial, the EU, in the ASEAN EU ministerial declaration on connectivity, they agreed to this notion of sustainability and sustainable connectivity. So I think this is something very that fits very well in what Anna has said, and yesterday as well, the EU and Vietnam, for instance, agreed to further extend their security cooperation. But when it comes to China, EU-China relations, it looks far more difficult. And when we think of China's impact, the impact that China has on ASEAN, for instance, which is quite divisive, I think we do have a real. There is a variable here that impacts. That poses obstacles on strengthening connectivity without contentions.
Mm-hmm.
And COVID-19 is one, and the impacts of COVID-19 and the related policies and so on has a major is one reason why this is so. I think we need also refer to we need to reflect these dimensions as well. Otherwise, we very much we stay in this. Well, otherwise we miss an important point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for that comment. I think that was very well put. And I think that we can definitely try to draw that out more in the paper, that this in some ways is in response to other leadership visions that are not necessarily in alignment with the EU. China, as you mentioned, the US under Trump, for example, had very different visions than the EU is promoting. So there is a competition for whose agenda, whose system is going to win. Now, as Yun pointed out, there's more alignment potentially on sustainability and low carbon partnerships between the EU and US under a Biden administration, but definitely this is a competition. It's not just a platform for cooperation. So I think well put, and something we can develop more. So thank you.
Yeah, indeed, the China factor is the one we really have to, well, actually over this, the entire project, we realistically have to consider China factor quite seriously, because in reality, it's not just a competition over China versus the United States. Also, well, the EU-China relation, Korea-China relation, well, it also, in a sense, need to be redefined in a different context. And even though Donald Trump will be gone, but the legacy of Trumpism may hang around in the world for a while. So I think it will be quite, well, maybe at the sector by sector, the legacy will be quite the longevity and the lasting kind of impact of those legacy will be quite different. Maybe over sustainability, climate change side, indeed, well, that will be one of the less kind of the less conflictual versus intellectual property or other kind of the high tech sensitive issues, but not totally alien. So, well, any time this kind of the energy and also high tech environment issues can be used as an kind of the another political and economic tool to contain each other. So yes, we should not be kind of naive to bring China and to discuss China in a just a smoother, pander, the cutie style way. We have to be we have to face the realities.
So quite related to that, I have one comment and question to Anna and Charles. I read your paper with great interest and great satisfaction. Thank you very much for excellent paper. Especially I'm interested in the section 5 and 6 when you are analyzing the different partners and also heterogeneity among the partners, right? And then you are drawing some implications for leadership of the European Union. And I understand that you are seeing the connectivity as one of EU's leadership tools, right? Unlike the United States, which is a hegemon, the European Union should have some connectivity, cooperation with other countries to exercise some leadership, to accumulate and exercise the leadership. And in section 6, you are presenting two different ambitions. Number one is pacts for multilateralism and rules-based international system. And you are mentioning in this section Japan and Korea, and no mention about China. Because why I am asking this question, because China over the last 2-3 years was really mentioning the importance of the multilateralism, probably influenced by Trump's unilateral action against China. And China wanted to have some coalition with other partners, especially they found it in the European Union, something like that. So should we not evaluate this Chinese strategy in this section? I mean, why China has been doing that, how China will do it, and whether it is really serious with the multilateralism, and especially when it comes to rules-based international system, then probably the EU and China may get apart, right? They could have different directions, and mutual evaluation could be also quite different from each other. So I wonder how you could accommodate, whether or not, and how you could accommodate my comment on in the paper. That's my comment.
Should I attempt an answer? I think, I mean, here we haven't looked at China because the EU has a strategic partnership vis-a-vis China, which is a sort of develops in somehow independently and somehow in parallel, but there is no reason why we couldn't look at it. I'm a little bit, I mean, I've become a little bit unsure whether or not, because we know that the EU's connectivity strategy towards Asia is really in a way a rival platform to the BRI. Saying that, it doesn't mean that the EU and China can't have their connectivity projects, which of course they have, and they discuss a lot, you know, the fight against climate change and environmental issues and so on. And China might actually agree quite a lot on the sort of the broader perspective or the broader definition of sustainability, which includes social workers' conditions and social affairs and so on. It could be that China is actually quite interested in that, and that the EU would like to pursue that with China. But I think when it comes to the EU-China connectivity strategy, it seems to me that the EU also is, I'm not certain about this, but it seems like the EU is not so interested in including China within it, and that it would prefer to keep, you know, the dialogue with China within the strategic partnership. I mean, if this is not the case, I mean, someone can sort of enlighten me on that. But it seems, for me, from the outside, it seems to be the case, and we shouldn't underestimate the fact that the EU has now called China a systemic rival, I mean, a systemic competitor. And I think it has very much to do with this kind of, you know, the extension of standards. I mean, very concrete ways of building systems and production, you know, production systems and standards and so on. Who will actually prevail in this kind of strategic, low-key, but very important competition. And the EU, I mean, I might be wrong again, but the EU is actually quite strong. It's very low-key, but it's quite strong in the way in which it actually has an extraterritorial effect via its standard and the dissemination of its standards. And obviously, it would like to, you know, pursue that, let's say, that edge it has. It will not be able to deal with China in the same way and that is, I think, one of the reasons why it wants to a little bit compartmentalize China and then be able to sort of draw within the framework of a larger strategy, actually involve lots of countries in Asia, so Southeast Asia, East Asia, Central Asia, and even closer to home in, you know, in the neighborhood areas of the EU. That's very much my impression, but I can't say I have any proof to know.
Any further comments? So if not, Sebastian?
Well, just very briefly, I think this is a very, yeah, I mean, this is very, very topical, obviously. But the EU aiming compartmentalized China, this is how you called it. Could you provide some I mean, this hunch that you're describing? Why is it that you see this? I mean, one could argue that, you know, what we've learned about ASEM, yeah, I mean, this is all about, yeah, there are good arguments why that is probable, what you just said. But at the same time, so far, it hasn't happened, has it? No. So I think that we are exactly at this point where the EU actually needs to decide whether it wants to walk down that path or not. And if it starts to compartmentalize China, then, well, this is a slippery slope. And it would go against the previous policies of the European Union. So because China is not only a rival, it's also a partner and a competitor. This is the word. I mean, this is the EU parlance. So this is this is a very policy-wise and this is a very important question, which brings us back to the United States, back to the European Union currently courting Washington. The joint administration to team up on China, which brings us to the question whether which direction the Biden administration will actually turn to when it comes to China. We don't know this, but then at the same time, this is about the European Union and not about the United States. So it's about agency as well, EU agency. So what is it that the EU wants? What is it that member states want? And so this issue of, as you called it, compartmentalizing China, I think that is a very, very probably nice way of putting it, and it's something that we need to face. I mean, it's indeed a question.
Well, I can try to sort of reflect on what you said. I think it's right. I mean, but I think it comes from the fact that I mean, if we think about in terms of levels of action, the EU is not a great diplomatic actor. It's not a great sort of power-based actor. And here it knows that China has bullied it into a corner. And I think that that is the reason why we see a much tougher rhetoric on behalf of the EU towards China. And I think the EU finds itself, and now I'm thinking more in the way of which the EU actually operates. So the EU finds itself much more at ease when it can divide issues, according to policy areas or to technical issues or to formal agreements, and they should be about very concrete things and so on. And here, of course, I think it would like to depolitize that kind of links or relationships it can create with countries. Although we know that there is a sort of a larger dimension of politics, even when it comes to production standards or standards of, I don't know, of environmental, environmental issues and so on. That, of course, there is a political dimension to it, but the EU doesn't want to politicize it. It would like to have those issues on the level of, let's say, of more concrete action and technicalities. And in that relation, on that level, I think it would rather prefer to deal with China on its side and with all the other Asian countries or countries in the EU Eastern neighborhood on another side, and not try to have these kind of big pushes. But I might be wrong here, because of course the EU also wants China in the multilateral frameworks. And I don't know, Charles, if you know a little bit about the EU's way of engaging China.
Well, I was just going to say very briefly that once again, I think Sebastian is on to something that's important to point to without getting lost down the rabbit hole. But I think it's very much of a balancing act the EU is trying to pull off with China, which is that it wants to have partnership on areas that it sees mutual possibilities for this, such as climate change. And you see these big bilateral summits that they have every year. And they try to produce plans. EU and China cooperated pretty well in the climate negotiations for producing this Paris rulebook, for example. And then the idea that EU wants to partner with China to implement that agreement. But on the other hand, they clearly do see China as a competitor. And as Anna correctly pointed out, this is definitely, this connectivity strategy seems to be very much response to the Belt and Road Initiative. And as you mentioned, Sebastian, this idea of the EU sees a partnership with potentially the Biden administration for these trade issues that they see as themselves having these complaints they have with China's behavior. So, and there's the competition and trade, but still trying to hold out the possibilities of partnership for sustainability, and particularly on climate, low carbon strategies and implementing Paris. So it's going to be tricky, but I agree with you that we need to at least deal with that in some sort of concise way, because that definitely is dimension that touches our paper profoundly, I think. So thank you.
Yeah, friends, we really